to be to these programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in a machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, I realized how much fun it'll be to have a competitive site for real-world problems. Now, sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on a small set of textbook algorithms, whereas in the real world, you work on things ranging from machine learning to artificial intelligence, computer systems to build real products. At Hackerman, building the competitive league for hackers to solve real-world problems.
And now I am able to share my. So I have to just open this Microsoft Edge tab, and it's working fine.
I used to be addicted to these competitive programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in a machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, that I realized how much fun it'll be to have a site for real-world problems. Sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on small algorithms. As in the real world, you work on things ranging from machine learning to artificial intelligence to distributed systems to build real products. Hackerman, we are building the competitive league hackers of real world problems. In school in India, I used to be addicted to these computer programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in a machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, that I realized how much fun it'll be to have a competitive site for real-world problems. Now, sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on a small set of textbook algorithms. As in the real world, you work on things ranging from machine learning to artificial intelligence, computer systems to build real products. At Hackerman, we are building the competitive league for hackers to solve real-world problems.
Yes, can you answer me?
When I was in school in India, I used to be addicted to these competitive programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, that I realized how much fun it'll be to have a competitive site for real-world problems. Now, sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on a small set of textbook algorithms, whereas in the real, you work on things ranging from machine learning to artificial intelligence to computer systems to real products. At Hackerman, we are building the competitive league for hackers to solve real-world problems.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me now? Perfect. So I'm gonna share screen and are you able to see this?
Yep, we can see it.
Yeah, and once I go to the slideshow mode, I'm guessing still you can see the screen.
When I was in school in India, I used to be addicted to these competitive programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in a machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, that I realized how much fun it'll be to have a competitive site for real-world problems. Now, sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on a small set of textbook algorithms, where in the real world, you work on things ranging from machine learning to artificial intelligence to distributed systems to build real products. At Hackerman, we are building the competitive league for hackers to solve real-world problems.
Kirti, Akshar, Satvik. Yeah.
When I was in school in India, I used to be addicted to these competitive programming sites like ACM and Topcoder. It wasn't until I participated in a machine learning hackathon at Amazon, my first real programming job, that I realized how much fun it would be to have a competitive site for real world problems. Now, sites like ACM and Topcoder focus on a small set of textbook algorithms.
Okay, I'll just give a quick intro to everyone. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Kashish, and on behalf of the Center of Innovation and Incubation at NIT Warangal, I welcome all of you to today's talk, which is a part of our flagship event, Firefly. Firefly is a 2-month-long event that is aimed at nurturing entrepreneurial spirit, leadership qualities, and industry awareness amongst its participants. This will be achieved through various talks, webinars, and workshops over the course of Firefly. All of this will then conclude in a hackathon at the end of these 2 months, where the participants will put their newly acquired knowledge and skills to test and build solutions to industry-oriented problem statements. Today's event will consist of a talk followed by a question and answer session where some of you will get an opportunity to ask your questions to our speaker live. Those who are joining in via YouTube, please note that some of your questions will also be taken up by our team. So do make sure to post them in the chat stream. Today, we have someone with us whose entrepreneurial journey is extremely inspirational and at the same time very thrilling. I would like to extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed speaker for today, Mr. Harishankaran Karunanidhi, who is an entrepreneur, a software developer, and a build engineer. He is the co-founder and CTO at Hackerman. Hackerman is a world-famous tech company that focuses on competitive programming challenges for both consumers and businesses, where developers compete by trying to program according to provided specifications. HackerRank is now the market-leading technical assessment and remote interview solution for hiring developers. Harishankaran sir has helped scale this product from an absolute zero stage to a stage at which it now has thousands of users per day. In addition to this, he has also written an in-house code checker, which is the core of their website, hackerrank.com. Hackerrank can now be called a software engineer's heaven without any doubt. It is a place where programmers from all over the world come together to solve problems in a wide range of computer science domains, such as algorithms, machine learning, or artificial intelligence, as well as to practice different programming paradigms like functional programming. So, what you have achieved will always inspire young minds to work towards creating something impactful and revolutionary. There is so much that I would love to talk about in your journey, but I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone who's watching this that we can't wait to listen to you speak and deliver your indispensable insights. So, without any further ado, over to you, sir, to share your wonderful journey with us and help us understand the qualities of a successful business leader. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I'm super excited to be here. I always get a lot of energy when I interact with college students. That's where you have a lot of call it pure raw energy, innovation, ability to even try outside the box. A lot of the things I always find whenever I interact with college students. So a little bit about me. So my name is Hari. I did computer science in NIT Trichy way back in 2004 to 2008. Interestingly, whenever we hire interns for our company, I used to ask this question. I joined college in 2004, and what class were you in at 2004? So that's an interesting question, which every year I used to ask our interns batch, and the answer is getting more and more embarrassing these days. And after working for about a year in IBM, then I started this company called Hackerman. Starting 2009, and I've been acting as a co-founder CTO from 2009 till today. So that's a quick intro about me. uh, this is the agenda for the talk today. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our story, so how we started, and then and more on why code, and how when I say code, probably I should have named it as why build and how to build. Maybe that would have been a better wording there. But why is coding or the programming skills so important, and how do we get started on it, and what are the different paths? And that's some of the things we're going to discuss. And at the end, absolutely happy to answer any questions you might have. So, let's get started with the story. So, like any other entrepreneur, like everyone else, we had this $1 million idea. Like, you have this amazing idea which you think which is going to change the world, which is going to make a lot of shift. And that's idea for us was mock interviews. So this is how we started our company. And that's why even our company's initial name, not sure all of you would know, before this Hackerman, our company was called interviewstreet.com. And that's where today, if you go to interviewstreet.com, it'll probably just redirect to just Hackerang, because today we are known by the word Hackerang. But at the start, we were called Interview Street. And what we did was a mock interview platform. And this is the idea with which we started. The way this used to be our the old logo, and the way Interview Street would work is, we had a platform for interviewers who would want to do mock interviews. So these are people from Google, Facebook, Amazon, different companies. We had these interviewers who would create an interview. Then students would apply for the interview. Eventually, the interviewer would choose one of the students who applied for the whole process. And then the students would pay for the interview, and we would pay a part of that to the interviewer and keep the remaining with us. So imagine, this. So if the student is paying like 1,000 rupees, we would pay say 700 to the interviewer for his or her time, and then we would keep the 300 back with us. So if the cycle goes on again and again and again, you make a lot of money. That's one of the reasons why you start a company. Not the main reason, but this better happen, right? Otherwise, there is no way you can move forward. Now, there are certain flaws in this thing. First off, no interviewer created an interview. This is after we built the platform, after we, quit our jobs, built the platform, we launched it, then realized the interviewers never created an interview. They already had so many interviews to take in their day job. Interviewing is not something they enjoy. The developers enjoyed coding. So asking them to do an interview again when they come back as a side project was not really exciting. They wanted to come back, spend time with their friends, family, go for a movie, different things. And you're asking them, don't do this. instead do an interview for us. It didn't work. The second one, students never applied for an interview, you know, and I should have known this better. I was one of those students who would prepare just before the exam or just before the interview rather than plan much, much ahead. So students needed jobs in, say, Google, Facebook, and Amazon, but they didn't want to prepare way earlier. They just probably wanted to prepare the previous day or the previous week and nothing beyond that. So when these two never happened, this never happened, and this never happened, and the most important step, this never happened. So so then we are stuck. Like, what do you do? And whenever you start a company, everyone is congratulating you. Like, you're suddenly from software student to software engineer. You have visiting cards saying you are the CTO of the company, you are the CEO of the company. You could say co-founder, and friends and family are saying, okay, this is amazing, and we expected this. Like, we are going to be rich because we started a company. But then about 1.5 years later, all we made was about 4,000 rupees in total. Like, 15 months it took us to earn 4,000 rupees. This is actually a currency which is not even valid today. But, it took us a lot of time to realize that, starting a company is totally, totally different than making value. And only when you create value, people are going to pay for that, not just because you start a company. And one pro tip, of the 4,000, we use 2,000 rupees to go for a treat with our friends, saying, we made money, let's treat our friends and others who are part of this. So 50% of our company's revenue we spent on a treat. That doesn't is not an ideal business sense, but we were naive at that time, right? Like, we just thought we are going to get money on and on and on, but little did we know that this was the case. So with that in place, it didn't look that great. Like, we ended up in different state. Like, we started taking different side projects. In fact, we used to go to different universities in and around Chennai. That's where we were, and used to teach them programming for a whole day, like how to crack a coding interview or how to present better. And that used to fund us some money, and we used to use that to run our company. We did work really hard. The pictures show us as just probably sleeping, but that's probably because after a lot of coding sessions or a lot of work. In fact, this you see in the screen is the first version of Interview Street after mock interviews, and that's my CEO, Vivek. We launched more products. So first was a failed mock interview platform for jobs. Next was this failed platform to connect students who want to go for higher studies. So we thought we could connect students who want to do MS in US and other places to people who are already there and see if we could build a product there. The third one was an online assessment platform for students. Like, students, could they take a test on their own? And the fourth one was what you're seeing as HackerRank today, where companies could conduct online assessments. So it took about a lot of trial and error before we could actually come to this final product, which actually worked. This was the first needle mover in the entire process. So we were the first Indian company ever to be chosen for the incubation program at Y Combinator. So Y Combinator is this great startup incubation program in the US. If you have read Hacker News anytime, they own the Hacker News, and so they have never invested in any company from India so far. So we were the first Indian company to be selected for Y Combinator. This was the first thing which went positive in a big move. Like, this has never happened before. And then the second is we built an amazing team. after we got into YC, we started building things. This was our office when we had an office. Right now, we are a fully remote company. So, but still we built this great team and hired amazing people who I love working with. And today, you see HackerRank being used in each and every industry. Like if you take software companies, hardware companies, social media, online retail, even printing. Like for example, Tata McGraw, companies like Coca-Cola, they are still using and they are hiring developers using HackerRank. So there is some we could see that we could impact not just different companies in a particular domain, but we could also impact different domains we never thought initially is possible. Like we were initially at least more focused on software, but then that's one thing I'm going to talk about on the later, how every company is becoming a software company. So today, like mentioned in the intro, it's a leading developer skills assessment platform. Uh, we are call it number one in ensuring that if you want to assess the skills of a developer, if the developer needs to upskill themselves, HackerRank is the place to go. So that's the initial story, if I can say. And if you think about it, I don't know if you've seen any of this Bollywood movies or South Indian movies. You have this first half of the movie where nothing goes wrong for the hero, everything is bad, beaten up by the bad guys and whatnot. And then there is probably one song in between or something motivational happens, and then the movie changes completely drastically, and you totally are another person. I put a South Indian star here, but I'm guessing you could replace this with any of the movies you've seen. Let me tell you, there was no one song which changed everything. Like that certainly was not the case. There is a lot of small things which we had to figure out, iterate on top of that, and make it happen. So it's not like a typical movie, but it's totally opposite to that. So coming back to this, so what really worked for us? What worked for HackerMan? There is one thing, there is two things we specifically had as a core DNA in our system. Like we had a lot of persistence. Like no matter what happens, we had this weird quality where if something goes wrong, Vivek would usually tell me saying, okay, how do we take it to the next stage? Like what do we do to get out of the stage? And if things goes wrong, and if he is in a different state of mind, I would ask him, okay, this is how we would, what do we need to do to move out of this stage? And I would be telling him, okay, we are stuck here, we are not getting enough signups, let's try this thing. And sometimes it would be him answering and me asking the questions, or other times it's him asking me like the vice versa, right? So that persistence is something I think I learned it in college, and that's one of the things why I'm sharing this with here. And the second thing we had is ability to code or build. Like for example, given we are building in HackerRank, and in fact at that point in time, both of us used to code for the website, both of us used to build features. If we didn't have that, call it superpower, to ability to build our ideas, then there is no way we would have been able to implement what we did today. So that is certainly one of the factors which made sense. So I'm going to talk about both in detail: persistence and ability to code, right? So persistence, how did we get that? No matter whenever we are stuck, the question which we ask each other is what next? Like how do we get out of the situation, and how do we solve the problem, or how do we increase our numbers, or how do we even get started, right? Like, and as I reflect back, I got this attitude only in college, and you folks are there, so I do want to share. I learned it from all the failures I made in college, and that's probably why I want to share this with you. First off is your arrears or supply or your failures in college. doesn't let you stop there. So if you do fail once, you got to clear that paper the next time. Like, you can't be stuck with that, and it's not forever. You need to, in fact, next time you have to clear more papers, and you need to move out of that. The second one is, I learned how to manage my day, manage my meetings, by making sure, balancing on what is important, what is not important, and happening there. And last but not the least, you also learn from your failures in colleges as well. So different ways in which you learn from different failures in college, and that teaches you to become a lot more persistent. Like next time the same thing happens, you know how to handle a situation. The second part of my talk now, is why code, or why do you have to build now, and how has things changed in the market right now. The first one is you might have heard this quote, which is software is eating the world. Or another way of sharing this is every company today is a technology company. So for example, earlier we had these taxi companies. In fact, if you have to go to an airport, you have to book the taxi, I think, one day before, or and then or you come out, and even many cities had these taxi stuff. And then Uber and Ola came and changed the whole system. Now none of us would imagine that Uber is a taxi company. They are a tech company, solve the core problem using technology, and leveraging 10x better than the experience which was there earlier. And another example, if you want to get Paytm payment, earlier the only way you would do it is you need to have a device, and at the point of sale you swipe your card, and that's the only way you would actually have payment. Paytm changed it, and then later UPay changed it much better. So today anyone could accept cash at wherever they are, with just having their phone number. You don't need a car, that device where you swipe your card, and that needs to have internet connection and whatnot. This is my favorite example. So when I went to my university sometime back, I had to treat my juniors, and they took me to the CCD nearby that was within the campus. And then they said, when I was about to pay for it, they asked me to pay through this app. And the reason is because CCD apparently has an app called, they're called CCD app, which is, they do have this thing called beans. So every time you pay through the app, you do get this beans. And then you keep accumulating that. If you refer your friends, you earn more beans, and you could use that to get a coffee. So if you have, say, 1,000 beans, and if you're walking next to a CCD, they could send a notification to you saying, you're nearby, why don't you visit our store and have a coffee for free? So a coffee, a company which serves coffee, they need to have their own app. In fact, I've heard Starbucks, they do have their own payment system, and they've built an in-house something like that. And if you see the similar apps, there is this Domino's and KFC, they also have to follow the trend. Otherwise, they will be left behind. So every company is becoming the tech company, and developers, you could call, are the new kingmakers. Like they get to decide how things are made, how the world is moving, what is the next big thing which is going to happen in technology is mostly decided by the developers. So the problem though is resumes really don't tell if someone can code or someone can build. Just by looking at a resume, you can't really predict if someone can code or not. For example, I'm going to tell a story here. This is Alex. So he did his bachelor's in physics, and he had no relevant experience. He was a good coder, but his certificate or his degree was in physics. And he was rejected from Quora based on his resume. Like, he applied to Quora. Obviously, like when someone sees this is a someone who did a bachelor's in physics, you may end up rejecting the candidate just based on the profile. And 1 year later, Quora as a platform was using HackerRank, and they conducted a contest on our platform. And Alex took the #1 spot in the leaderboard. And after that, Quora can't really, ignore him anymore. So he joined Quora, and then, was a top engineer at Quora when I last checked with him a few years back. So you need to, have the right kind of skills, and you need to showcase it. And that's the last piece of my agenda, which is how to code and what are the different areas of, or different avenues which are available for someone who wants to, code or who wants to build new things. The first one, I mean, this gets a little bit more technical, and actually, this is the part I like the most, more than the story. This is where I connect most with. So one is you need to know one programming language in one of the stuff. Like you could say, oh, I know either C or C++ or Java or C Sharp. You don't need to know everything, but knowing one in each one of this bucket totally helps. And when I say no, you need to, it's not just about learning the syntax and learning how things work, or learning from a book saying how, how oops works in Java and not really using it. It's learning it by building something using that. Like if you want to learn Java, could you create a full Java application which some of which can be used so that people can use that for some real world use case, like build a Java app as a to-do app which you and your friends and family can use. The next one is the scripting languages. So there are certain languages like your PHP, Python, Ruby. This is where if you are building a web backend, most of the times this is the area you would come back to. And knowing one of this, the minute you learn one, you could always learn the second one. Like it's easy, straightforward. You can extend the concepts there. Knowing one functional languages completely changes the way you write code. It changes the way you think, actually. And this is something I would strongly recommend. Some of the developers I respect a lot, their thought process and the way they think through comes from this bucket. And last bucket, I had to put JavaScript. I couldn't put it in anywhere. That's one thing which is changing the world. Like today, either mostly it's building web applications. React is becoming the standard, and even if you are building backend, you may build the entire backend system using Node.js and whatnot. Not just that, you can build many like even AWS Lambda and multiple other stuff. The Node.js is becoming pretty much standard. So that is one big bucket. I would say learn that in such a way that you know how to build it, and not just a matter of learning the language. So that's on the language layer. Then we go into the domain knowledge, and so there are different domains I have put in here. So you could say algorithms is one. You could have web development as my second one. Mobile development is third. There's machine learning. There's DevOps and SRE. In fact, this is expanding. In fact, when I first made this deck, probably it's just these five. Now you could talk about your building for Web3 is probably a new domain which has been added to this. So in the domain knowledge, my again recommendation for students in college would be to try each and every one of them. Like you don't have to decide on which domain you want to go in when you are in college. The best thing you could do is try as much as you can. So for example, algorithms, there are tons and tons of websites, including HackerRank. I'm just put in everything I used, and that's where I learned programming when I was back in college. So there is so many websites out there. where you could go back and improve the algorithms and data structure knowledge. There's always this, I would call it a war in programmers, whether do you do algorithms or do you do real world programming? Like, these are algorithms are folks who would have good code forces, HackerRank, and different other profiles. And web development are folks who would have better GitHub, Stack Overflow, different profiles. Yeah, my recommendation there is just ignore the fight and just be better, good in both. It is possible to be good in both. It's only when you get very polarized about one of it, you move to one. So on algorithms, this is the piece. And web development, again, there is tons and tons of backend frameworks out there. I added two from PHP here, Cake PHP and CodeIgniter. Uh, Pick whichever you like. Like, I've added, I just picked some, logos of the frameworks I got while in a quick Googling session, but there is a lot more. Like I totally miss Django here. There is Golang as well. So there is tons and tons of options out there. So understand how applications work. And web dev, this is one piece where it's not just about learning how to build a simple task list application, or it's not just a simple app. You need to know how to build scalable applications. You need to think about security of your application. You need to think what are the ways in which you should not build the application. It's not just about how to build the app, it's also learning how you should not build an app. And that's when you have a better way to build scalable applications. Read about different companies engineering blogs, understand how they build applications. What are the different, there's tons and tons of videos, podcasts, and material out there where engineers working in companies talking about how their apps work. The next one is mobile. I think this is, again, there is Android and iPhone, probably the major ones where you can build in. I think the pattern I'm seeing is college students usually build Android apps because iPhone, you need to have a Mac, you need to pay for them, and so on. And with Android, it's easy to get started. That's totally fine. And interestingly enough, there are multiple frameworks like your React Native and other things where you could build it in completely Android and later port it to iPhone if your app is ever successful. So some good trends I've seen is college students building just Android app using React Native. The app gets a little successful and then they can immediately move it on to iPhone, and they can capture a big market. So almost like the idea is, could you start more and more projects? In fact, when I started Hackerman, it didn't feel like running a company. We were mostly starting a project. Like, it was a fun project to work with. We enjoyed doing this, and there were different aspects of the project. And then when it became really useful for people, it became a company, and then we started hiring people. And machine learning, there's a ton of content out there as well. Udacity, Udemy, Kaggle is one good place where you could learn machine learning. This somewhat tangential to folks who are already in web or Android development. I find it a little hard because of the math involved underlying that, but this is an amazing domain to know the basics, understand how things work. In fact, tools like TensorFlow and other things makes it easier as well. And AWS and Google Cloud, they're making machine learning more and more easier to just use it. So it's almost like ML is now an API call. It's not really, it's not as hard as it was years and years ago. So with that said, I have one last slide, and then I'm now open for questions. So this is probably the only advice I would give in this call. Like if you want to ignore everything I spoke so far, and if you want to pick one thing, this is probably the only thing I would say as for students. And I wish someone told me at that point and when I was in college as well. So this is this is a way I couldn't find a good pick to explain this concept. So got probably the most horrible pictures you could get for mom and dad and teacher there. So so the idea behind this is you have your mom, dad, teacher, and God. That's the four things, and the order in which you should respect them, and the order in which you worship them, and everything. I agree with this. It's not a philosophical topic. It's still a tech topic. This was before 1995. After at 1995, something changed. That one change is this: you got Google. So whenever I see students saying, your college is not great, or I don't have the right opportunities, the only question I ask them is, did you have internet? Like, do you have good internet access? And if that's the case, you don't have any reason to complain, because you got Google. You could search anything you want. You could learn anything you want. So if there is one thing I could tell you all on what to do better, it would be that just the self-learning is so much going to be more important than what they teach you in college. And by the way, it's not like you can't learn anything from college. There is a ton of things you do learn from there as well, but this plays a major role as you join a company and take some of the senior roles within the company. Like, there was no way my college could teach me how to be a CTO or anything. So you got to learn things on their own. That's all the things I had for this discussion. So if you have any feedback, if you want to reach me, that's my email address. It's hari@hackerrank.com. Thank you so much for listening to this. Now open to any questions you may have.
Okay, everybody, you can either raise your hand and then I call out your name, or you can put your questions in the chat box. Until you come up with your questions, we have some questions which have come from YouTube. Okay, so how did you find courage to continue on startup path even after your initial failure?
It was I mean, I wish I have a very inspirational answer, but it's not really the case. Like, it was scary. I think the deal was, and especially, I think more than me, I had to convince my parents, right? Like, they were confused, what I'm up to. Like, this was this good guy. He went to a good college. Suddenly, what happened to him? He's just sitting at home, working all day but making no money. Like, this doesn't make sense for them, and they were right in their own way. So the initial contract I had with them is like, let me try this for 1 year. If it doesn't work, I'll go back to a job. And of course, after 1 year, it didn't work. Then the contract extended by another 6 months. So I'm almost into this. Let me try this for another 6 months. And if it doesn't work after 6 months, I'll go back to a job. Thankfully, after 1.5 years, things started working. I think at some level, having that end of the runway where you're going to crash made it really you have to take off, otherwise you're just going to go and hit something. That made it more added more pressure, gave us the right velocity to try out new ideas. But I think it isn't easy. Like, it's almost some level of, call it you can either call it some level of confidence or some level of stupidity. Like, it's both the same, which we had at that point in time. The trust we had, like, we'll figure it out. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. The another way we were also thinking at that point is, if we try this and go back to a job, we will be a lot more valuable to the company. So we just graduated, we worked in a company as a software developer for 1 year, and we thought the experience of running the company might be really helpful in our career as well, if at all nothing works out. we would go back as probably with a with a higher roles or a different roles within the company. So that's the different backup plans we had. Thankfully, we didn't have to use any of them.
Thank you. So, Loknath has raised your hand. You can go ahead and ask.
Hello, sir. It was a great talk. I was just wondering, you talked about how you had to persist in the initial days, and that's what paid off. You had to bounce ideas off of each other when you were tackling some setbacks. I was wondering, could you elaborate what setbacks you faced in the initial years, like, the first 1.5 years? What did you have to like overcome, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, sure. So one is absolutely no users turning up on your website. In fact, early days we put in this Google Analytics on our website, and if the number reaches more than 2, we had a reason to celebrate because there is someone else outside me and Vivek who was looking into the website, and we would try to see which city they are from and why did they log in, what are the pages they visited, and everything. And there are some days where you get 0 users, and that's a little depressing because nobody really used the app. And then when we started going to different universities, I think the biggest setback in general is, are you building really something which users would want to use at some point? Or are you building something out of your own imagination, which is never going to be used? Like that, there are some days where we felt like we are building the next big thing, and some days we felt we are building absolutely useless product. And these were consecutive days. Like it's just a lot of first of all mental pressure to handle, like bigger highs and bigger lows. So the first big problem probably would be that nobody used our product. The second one, I think some of the challenges is when people actually used our product, we suddenly had to scale up everything. We were building it for a smaller usage. I think I was in a university with my customer, and we had online assessment, and the server crashed. And the customer is just looking at me saying, "Hari, what is happening?" And I'm trying to fix the system. And we had about like 150 students in their lab just looking at me and waiting for me to fix that. So those were, so if the fix didn't happen within minutes, we lose the customer. So those were really stressful moments. They right now become very fun stories to share. But at that point in time, I just wanted to run away from that lab, like truth be told, somehow get that fixed. So those were, I think, the early days challenges.
Thank you, sir, for answering my question.
Parimal, you can go ahead with your.
Yeah. Hello, sir. And it was a nice talk with you, and it's all motivating. And I have a question that all says that to sustain in market, either to be the first or to be the best in the market. What is your advice on this for young entrepreneurs to launch a new idea in the market in a particular field where some others are doing good existing?
That's a good question. I don't think at least my hypothesis that this is at this market in time, at this time, it's very, very hard to come up with new ideas. Almost every idea you could imagine is probably built, launched at some point in time. So being the first is going to be almost, in fact, for all you know, before HackerRank, we did have online competitions. Like, there was ACM ICPC, Topcoder, and Spodge, and other websites where I used to participate. So it's not like we created online coding competition, nothing at all. But all we changed is, could this be used for hiring? Could this be used for recruitment? That's the change we did. So there are some times when you look at the same problem with a different lens, and that's when, let's say, you could create a new idea. And many other times you can make better products in one aspect. So it's not like so the product you're building, maybe already there is something in the market which has 10 features, and not all 10 of them are great. Maybe 2 of them are not great and 8 is great. And that 2 is your market potential, because there will be enough customers or users of that product who would love to see those 2 fixed. So it's easy, and you don't have to build everything. Your product initially will just have 2 features. It will have those 2 which is not great in other website and will do fantastically well. Now comes the next question, which is, can you find enough users who love those 2 features and would be ready to pay for those 2 features? Actually, one advice I can give you here is, if at all you ever build like this, starting day one, ask for money. Don't build it for free. Always ask money. And that's a quick validation where people are, do they really like the feature that they're ready to pay for it? Or are they just, excited just to see it, but they would never pay for it? So that's one way to validate, are you really building the right valuable thing or not? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's have Ashwin's question now.
Hello.
Hey, Ashwin. Yes.
Yes. Like, first of all, it was a very nice talk from you, and like, I enjoyed it a lot. So I have this question that, just like you said, right now we cannot be the first in market because probably everything we think of is already out there. So right now I have an idea after many ideas, and like, I got 4 of my friends with me working on it. So like, it's basically centered on like coding. So we are learning coding and we are simultaneously working on the project also. Like, what would you advise?
I'm not sure if I lost Ashwin, but I think the last thing he mentioned was, what would you advise? I'm gonna go ahead and answer, assuming that's the entire question you had. I think there are many times when you are new in a domain that you would learn and build, and that's okay. And that happens many times, because you can't be in a state where you learn everything and then you're going to build. That way you would constantly be learning, and the building may not really get started as well. And it's okay to build a very bad v1. In fact, WordPress used to have this quote in their website: if you are not embarrassed about your first version, then you have released it way too late. So the first version is just gonna be like, almost ideating things and call it throwaway, but gives you a lot of market validation, saying whether it is gonna work or not. The first version is not you don't have to imagine that your V1 is gonna survive for the next 5 years or 6-10 years. Can it give you the initial market validation? And the minute you get market validation, you could always improve on that, rewrite the whole code into some new system which you may want to. So if you're just learning things, like, just learn and build alongside. The code is not going to be pretty. It's going to be slow. Sometimes it's not the right design. That's okay, as long as you keep building. I think that's what matters.
Okay, so I'll just read out a question which we have in the chat box from Adarsh. If I have a problem solving vision or idea, which app do you think learning app building and then implementing is better? Or we should try to network and get it done by someone? Bootstrap start.
Got it. I would at least, or I think I have seen enough companies do both ways. I don't think there is one. That's the fun part about difference between college and company. In college, you have one right answer, and then you have 10 wrong answers. When you're building a company, you have 10 right answers. You could do it any way you want, and all of them might work. I wish I could say, no, you need to build the app, and then you can tell me 10 big companies where they outsourced it or they made it got it done from the network. And then when I say if network is the right answer, you could, you would end up many companies where the early founders built that. So there is always a trade-off. My recommendation is, if the app is core for your business, then having you as a full control on that gives you a lot of leverage. So for example, in Hackerman, the platform and the code checking capabilities, we never thought of outsourcing that. Like we never thought of getting it done through the network. So it is totally on us, and we built that because we know that is key for us. Right now there are many other things which are not core for our business, so those are the things we can get it done through the network, or you use some other products, or use some no code solutions to build it and get it started. So the framework I would use is this core for your business? Do you, if you want to increase velocity in that, can you sit and do that? So that's possibly how I would see that.
Okay, so we have an interesting question from YouTube by Vaibhav Khandelwal. At initial stages, while pitching to the investors, you have a stand to build the community and tech first rather than bugs. So, how have you convinced the investors to get on board?
Actually, I think I don't think I faced the problem. The investors were a lot smarter than what we were at that time. So they saw that if you build a community, there is value to that. Like, it is probably the other way around. Especially, this is when things like your Facebook, LinkedIn, and others were growing at a much bigger stage. And there wasn't any community for developers specifically. So there is always value in community, and people understand it. There are different communities which for like one of take the example of Stack Overflow. That's just purely built on community and people answering tech questions, and that's has a lot of value, got an amazing funding and whatnot. So I think it's I don't really have to worry about neither us nor the investors had to worry so much on the money. It's the more question we got from day one is, will we be able to build the community and be the number one community there? Like that's the kind of questions we got asked. So not really something you need to worry about. If you they do need money at the end, but they understand, like most of the investors have been into the ecosystem for quite some time, and they do understand that you do need to build something, either a community or a product, and then only you can make money.
Right. Sriranga has raised her hand. You can, Sriranga. Yeah,
Good
you can
evening,
go
sir.
ahead.
Good evening, sir. It was such an overwhelming speech. So, my question is how to decide what is the right team for us to establish a startup? Being persistent is very difficult, but having a team which is equally persistent is even more difficult. So, how did you find that team?
Yeah, you need team with call it complementary skills. So from the start, I liked programming computers and tech stuff more. So it was probably very clear that I'm gonna be the CTO or the technical side of things. And then Vivek liked talking to potential customers. He was also a software developer, but his core DNA was he liked doing the pitching. He wanted to understand from our users and see how they are using the product. So I would, in fact, in the early, even now, I'm usually scared to do a demo of our product. Like I can't do focus for at least an hour before if there is a customer demo or anything at all, because that makes me nervous. And if you want to build a website, I could just jump right into it, and those are things I could be able to do. So in case of Vivek, it was the opposite. Like he loved talking to people. So this having this complementary DNA, you can say, like there is one core thing which he liked and other core thing which I liked, and both of us both of these things are needed to build a company. So that worked well in our favor. If both of us were core developers not ready to talk to customers, or both of us are customer facing stuff and not ready to build the product, it would have been a little bit odd. So that is probably one thing I would see. And again, there is a lot of, it is a hard journey. It's not always fun, and so you need to have someone you can always trust or rely on, like who know you can uh, uh, you can who can guide you even if you are not fully confident of the idea. So So there are many times where I be low and he would be the one who would, tell me saying this is how we move ahead and take on to the next level. And he would be low and I would be giving him almost the same thing, but just that it worked both the ways. So that's the second part of it. The first one is complementary skills, and the second one is someone whom you trust to go through the hard journey. So that's the two things I look for.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. I'm taking a question from YouTube again by Snehalata. How did you manage to work with a diverse team?
How did you manage to work with a diverse team? It takes some learning. In fact, I think two parts. One is especially folks from different countries, different background, even folks from India coming from different states and different background. You do need to get some um, understand their perspective, understand their beliefs, and so on. There's this concept called human biases we have, or there's this, if you search for different biases we have as people, or mental models on how do you take decisions. You can Google search for these. There is a bunch of materials which comes out on mental models and biases we have, that tells you that okay, these are the ways, in different ways in which you take decisions and why others would take decisions and so on. It's a good, I mean, it is one part of learning, I would say. Not all learning is just purely technical skills. Some of them are people skills as well. So I think that's possibly reading a bunch of books on these topics helped a lot. You start looking at the same thing from different perspectives, and once you start doing that, you get better and better in that.
I'll read out a question which we have in the chat box. It's by Muralidhar, and he is asking, it's interesting how you mentioned that the contract you had with your parents is out of confidence and stupidity. Now that you have this wonderful experience, are there any parameters that you can suggest for us to distinguish between confidence and stupidity while taking decisions?
It's an interesting question. I don't know. I mean, it's always, there is this thing called, I mean, I spoke about biases, right? There is always this thing called there's one of the biases is called survivorship bias. Like if you have a final, if you win, you can tell a good story and you could say all the things which happened, you can attribute it to the win. And if you lose, like you'd have, you don't know what to attribute it to the lose. So to the loss there. So I don't know if there is any clear parameter I could suggest between confidence and stupidity. I think probably it does look same when looking back. Like there is no huge difference between it's just that the persistent helped us at some. You need to this motivation quote. You need to win only once. Like you could be say doing stupid thing and one really good thing, and that takes off your company. So all the mistakes I think we did earlier, I would tag it to stupidity. We waited out till we did one right thing, and that is the online assessments. And from there, it totally worked well in our favor. So probably it's the same set of people, same set of skills, but one day we do something really great, and one day we do really stupid. Like that's how it is. You just try to increase the wait till you make enough right decisions.
That was a great answer, sir. Tanisha, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Yes, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. Good evening, sir, and thank you for this session. My question is particularly about the startup scene. Like the startup scene in India is improving right now, and the government is taking initiatives to promote Indian startups. This wasn't the case when you were beginning your company, right? So what challenges did you face then that have possibly been reduced right now, or what factors are more favorable for startups right now uh, compared to back then?
Yeah, there was probably, access to money, capital is a lot easier now. It's also very easy to build applications. Like, it's not just the government and stuff. AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure, they give ton of credits so that you can build their application on their platform. And in fact, they give a lot of credits for students as well. So that all those things helps you launch a website. I don't know, I can call, that's where I say launch a project. I don't know if it is a startup, I don't know if it's a company. It's very easy to launch projects, and when one of the projects succeeds, you have a company. Like that's the framework, I would say. So the cost of launching projects has become much lower now, and that's actually amazing. And there are many companies even trying to have incubators within them, helping startups to launch their you would now it's easy. I've had actually, like what you're doing here, the entrepreneurship cell and the groups within college, they are also doing a ton of interesting things where they provide support either in terms of money or mentorship and different platforms. So it's amazing to see, and things are going to only get better from here on. The core is just launch one project. If it works, you have a company. If not, launch the second project, third project, and so on.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Kushi, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. Sir, you mentioned about persistence. So I want to ask, how should we be persistent? Because many a times we lose track. And how should we be consistent in whatever we are doing?
Um, I think as long as you, it's a very deep question. I wish I'm going to start with a disclaimer. I really don't know the answer. Like, it's as much as I spoke about it, and I told about 1.5 years. I still don't know if instead of 1.5 years, if it took another year, I would have continued or not. So there is that question always when people ask me, oh, instead of 1.5, if it had 2.5, 3, would you have been persistent? Or at some point, there is also another alternative, right? You fail fast and move faster. So there is no correct answer. As long as you see that end state, and if you believe the end state is going to add value to others. So if you are building, say, a simple application where students can maybe just mark their attendance, and if you believe that, say, this is just an example, if you believe that this app is going to be super famous, every university is going to use it at some point. It's not just you building it. So initially, it's just you building it for your friends, but then you go and talk to other departments in your college, and then talk about to other colleges within your city, and so on. If you do see that path, then there is you can stay persistent on that. And the minute you see like there are different reasons why they don't want to use the app, or what multiple other reasons why you may not want to do it, is when you, like, there are some times where you can't move ahead because there is a big blocker, like, it's probably legal, or probably different unknowns. My guess is you will get a sense of it. Like, that's all I can say. You will know that, okay, this is not gonna, no matter how much hard you push, this is not gonna move ahead. And that's probably, I would say, okay, take a different turn. There is, by the way, no one right answer here. Like, whatever I'm saying, you could always push back, and it will be amazing if I say this idea won't work and you prove me wrong. That would be a fantastic thing to happen.
Thank you so much, sir.
So we're going to take another question from YouTube, coming from Sachit Anand. What should a fresher or first year like me have an approach towards entrepreneurship and startups?
If you're in first year, learn as much as you can. And I would say, or rather, at least for students in college, I have only, if I have to give an advice, it's keep learning and have fun. Like these are the two things you should absolutely do. So work on projects which you find really you enjoy working on it. You don't have to worry about launching a startup and so on. Keep constantly learning different technologies, different new ideas, and build projects which you absolutely enjoy. So you could it whether it becomes a startup or not is something which you will see based on the, say, value you build in, the based on number of users you can get in, the revenue you can make, different metrics. But initially it starts as a simple idea, and see if the idea is going to be useful for everyone, and just launch it. Like, usually if you're building something, your friends and family are the first users, who would probably not pay you, but who would use the product, give you a ton of enough valuable feedback, and try to take it outside your network to see if others could pay for that.
One last question which we'll take from YouTube is from Rishikesh. Which fields to tech have the most potential for startups in the near future?
Which fields in tech have the I don't know if I can pick a field. So let me give a concept behind this, right? So when I was in college, that was the year when Gmail was launched. Okay, so before that, every website used to have a full page reload. There is nothing like, if you just click on a page, just the part of the page, or there is no Ajax before that. So you click on a page, the page will slowly load, and you need to see the white screen before the website load. That's the entire internet. And today, if you take any website, most of them have the single page web applications. There is, a single click does a ton of actions. That's JavaScript, which changed the internet in 2008. It's a huge big wave which changed the internet completely, and browsers completely changed after that. After that, some few years back, is this big long wave of Android and iOS apps. So every company, if you think about it, it's not enough if you just have a website. You also need to have an app to go along with it, whether it's B2B or B2C. Not all companies had apps at that time. The third wave is this, all about this machine learning. And people say data is the new oil. Today, if you type a mail in Gmail can probably complete your mail even before you could type it through. Like, the auto completions. And when you're watching something in Netflix, the recommendation next, what you have to watch next, comes almost perfectly, right? So machine learning completely changed the way we are consuming internet now. And the fourth one I'm super excited to look forward for is this entire technology, blockchain, and Web3, and building on top of that. Now, so every wave is on top of each other. Even today, companies are hiring JavaScript developers, Android and iOS developers, and ML engineers. So it's not like a temporary thing which comes and goes off. It's stacked on top of each other. So you could always pick a technology. That's why I'm saying try to be diverse at this point in time. Try to experiment with each and every one of them rather than trying to focus on one. Technology is not going to come and go at this point in time. It's there for you. It's going to stay for a longer time, which means whatever you learn, that's going to help you sustain for a long time.
Thank you so much, sir. As this amazing talk comes to an end, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule and agreeing to deliver this talk. I'm sure everyone found it extremely insightful and has learned a lot from your talk today. We couldn't have hoped for a more enriching talk as a part of our Firefly program. This talk rightly sets the tone for all the upcoming events and sessions that we have planned for all of y'all here. So this is for the participants that the next phase of the Firefly program, which is the first phase, is the early bird program, registrations for which are currently open. So if you're someone who's thrilled about Firefly and you don't want to leave any stone unturned, then the early bird program is where you should be. The registrations will close very soon now, so please hurry and fill the forms. Once again, thank you so much, sir, for making it today.
All right. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me here. I absolutely enjoyed the session, enjoyed all the questions. Good luck to you all, and
the participants. So please make sure you enroll for this program, because it will definitely help you learn much more through the early bird program. Right. And also for the people who are from the non-computer science batch and you find coding something very hard, we have a no-code workshop coming up soon. So keep your eye out for that as well. And once again, thank you all for coming, and I hope you all enjoyed and learned a lot from this session.
Thank you so much. It was really amazing.
Yeah, thank you for IG for